very much, and I'm so glad to be here with everybody with common interests, common and diverse interests. If we were looking at ESG a few years back, in fact, I started off in 2012 with the topic of ESG. It was a very fuzzy concept, but today linkages have been established well with investments and finance. We've seen how startling statistics on freshwater availability, air pollution, emissions, income inequality, corporate governance lapse, coupled with the realization that there is a financial implication, and this is all triggered ESG investing market in India. So there has been a focus. On the investor side, I would like to just highlight a few things. Over the last 3 years, the ESG equity mutual fund space, the Indian market currently has 10 ESG equity mutual funds, out of which 7 came up in the last 1 year. And as of March 2021, these 10 mutual funds managed assets of approximately 1.4 billion USD, of which 7 new funds brought about 700 million in new inflows. What is seen is that the growth of 3 times, this is the growth of 3 times year on year, but it remains to be only about 1.1% of the overall equity mutual fund AUM in India. And of course, the ratio has plateaued out in the last quarter, obviously on account of COVID lockdowns and lack of investor education, decreasing the pool of probable investors. We've also seen new funds of funds emerge, like the HSBC's Global Equity Climate Change Fund that invests in innovative solutions towards climate change, or BNP Paribas' fund, which invests in water value chains. Apart from these, of course, we've seen the AIF's link to ESG, and there have been announcements of raising over $1 billion. But there has been limited success, as funds are seen to be gravitating more towards equity, ESG equity kind of products. Now, if you come to the questions that you asked, typically a lot of ESG investing in India is based still on benchmarks, matrices, and cutoffs. So over the past 2 years, there have been a number of ESG commitments, but it is very important to understand the nature of investments. I was going through a Morningstar report which shows that different methodologies are used while investing, and there is no standard framework. I think that's pretty known. Very few use bottom-up proprietary stock selection processes. Moreover, 2 out of 3 older ESG funds that were issued are seen to invest a minimum of only 80% in ESG type stocks, with 20% of allocation to non-ESG stocks. Hence, these funds, I don't know whether we should call them 100% ESG compliant, and incidentally, these 2 funds make up almost 50% of the assets of the 10 ESG mutual funds AUM. So the skew is perhaps translating into this flattish kind of proportion. And in short, I think we analysts, investors need to dig deeper into really looking at what is the ESG quotient, or what really qualifies as 100% 100% ESG. There are certain biases where most funds carry a large cap kind of a bias, mainly due to poor performances of companies on ESG parameters beyond the top 100. And then we all agree that there is a lack of uniformity in disclosure standards. Of course, with the BRSR coming up, India will have the business responsibility and sustainability reporting. India would have some kind of a level playing field, and companies would have a standard to look at. What we've also seen is that there is traction on, 10 Indian asset managers and intermediaries have signed up to the UNPRI. The inception of sustainability benchmark indices, including the S&P ESG India Index, has led to the clamor in improving ESG ratings. So, frankly, when I stepped out of my financial institution role to start Optus ESG in the mid of 2020, ESG was not so much talked about. But suddenly today we see that everybody is gravitating, or everybody is very attracted towards this terminology. And I think one last point that I want to make here is that the rise in investor interest has translated into relative outperformance in the capital markets also. So the MSCI India's ESG leader index graph gives an overview of the index performance of companies, and the graph really indicates how companies with high sustainability performance outperformed their peers, and the trend is becoming more visible even during the COVID years, when the concentration has been on softer, on social disclosures in terms of human capital, how workforce is being treated, what are the salary, wages, etc. Global regulatory legislations and actions like the EU taxonomy, the TCFD mandate, yesterday the US Congress approving the climate change and ESG disclosure requirements for public companies in the US, all this will have the cascading effect on emerging markets. And I think it is very important for India to look at a kind of a comprehensive reporting framework, rating models that will deliver consistency and accuracy in data, and also provide a kind of intra-sectoral comparison of companies for investors to look at investing. The Ministry of Finance has put out a task force on sustainable finance which aims towards this, and I think by next year we should have some ESG framework for Indian banks and investors to really look at. I will come to that, but I think I just want to respond to some of the conversations that happened in when we talk about ESG financing or ESG investing as far as India is concerned, one must understand that currently the core investment philosophy or the core lending philosophy does not include ESG. Nor is it required from a regulatory lens, barring priority sector lending or barring some impact investment that a particular financial institution may want to do. So it is more of theme-based kind of investing. So therefore, and very rightly as Santosh said, that if you look at these 10 large funds, you would see that 70% or more than 70% of these investments have gone into IT, financial services and energy to some degree. But again, this is large scale, utility scale energy projects and not really climate linked sectors where there is a huge opportunity. So today, India, the biggest investment opportunity for India is over $3 trillion from now till 2030. And this includes, like we said, multiple sectors. Even within the renewable energy, most of the financing is happening to utility scale, but not to, smaller projects, and that is where the gap is. And this investment gap is largely because of this overall ESG thinking that we are talking about from financial institutions, because ultimately financial institutions think from a risk and return standpoint, right? And risk is not objective. Risk is lot of perception of risk. So financial institutions are really looking to eliminate, mitigate, manage or transfer the risk. And that is the perspective. Secondly, it is very easy to finance traditional businesses. So renewable energy has become, as good as traditional now. When we started renewable energy financing, it was difficult at that time, but today it's more traditional. So investing in a renewable energy business at a utility scale, may it be solar, wind, it's much easier. But when you look at an off-grid, or if you look at, biomass, or if you look at, other sectors, the risks are not known. Because where are the risk professionals? Where are the ESG risk professionals in financial institutions? And I think that is the focus that one should really look at. Transition finance takes a large amount of platform, and this is where directly hard to abate sectors can be financed to bridge the gap. So transition finance internationally has evolved, and it is for those sectors which are not green today, cannot become green tomorrow, but can and need to get greener, so become less brown. So that is really where transition finance is coming from, and it's internationally it has a credible definition. There is an ambitious target that has been taken by certain entities, but ultimately, how Indian financial institutions tag ESG finance, or how do they look at it as a core investment philosophy, is something that is one must look at. On your energy transition example, I just want to say one very small thing. It's very clear. IRENA study says that $1 spent in energy transition can deliver returns between $3 to $8, right? But given this whole potential, how do we want to exploit this, or how do we want to really get it on this? The renewable energy sector has got policy support, concessional facilities, credit enhancements that have been done, but the same kind of support is not there for low carbon projects. Similarly, for biomass. Thanks. So see, I will take you the part on the just transitions, and one must understand that that is conceptually embedded as a part of the Paris Agreement, which was elaborated on the International Labour Organization's guidelines. So as far as India is concerned, the concept of just transition is relatively new in terms of policy as well as in terms of finance. But the message is fundamental that India's developmental path, India will go through multiple economic transitions, digitization as well as shifting to zero carbon or this whole energy transition. And that presents an opportunity for India to look at how fair this transition will be and how would it mobilize finance as it happens. So, it is very important that this entire transition is designed with positive outcomes on livelihood and also protect the most vulnerable, those who are most vulnerable to the changes in terms of states, regions, or employment. So, and actually, if you look at it, I just want to just a minute to elaborate on this. As the economy reduces its dependence on fossil fuel, it will have to be gradual. I mean, we are even today a fossil fuel dependent economy. While we are building the whole clean energy or the clean economy kind of aspects and responding to the adverse climate impacts. Both public finance and private finance will have to be looked at differently. So the whole systemic financial architecture would need to be looked at. Taxes, duties, any kind of royalties applicable to fossil fuels. How will that alter the fiscal space? I think that is very, very important. Also from a private finance lens, in terms of banks and investors, capital markets, how will they reposition their portfolios and work through the S part of the ESG? So, we've seen COVID really changed the whole, game where investors started looking at the S part. But even from a transition standpoint, the S, this is a kind of a new relationship that the companies will have to look at when they, when financial institutions fund consumers or fund companies. How will that impact adversely or positively livelihoods or the entire, sustainable consumption basket, healthcare? I think these are the elements that need to be looked at. We saw how the textile industry, which got washed out in case of Maharashtra or Mumbai, what kind of social repercussions it had. And there, the transition was not just at all. So I think that is a very important element from a just transition standpoint. And India will have to put a roadmap out very soon to look at this whole transition.